December 1944. The Ardennes forest lay silent under a blanket of snow, the kind of frozen quiet that hides the coming storm. German SS units were moving through the darkness, confident in their strength, expecting only to overrun weak American supply lines. They did not expect what awaited them, the birth of what soldiers would soon call devil trucks. The idea began not in the front lines, but in workshops and factories far from the battlefield. The U.S. Navy had surplus anti-aircraft guns, powerful weapons capable of shredding aircraft in the skies. Meanwhile, the Army had fleets of GMC supply trucks, reliable but ordinary vehicles designed to carry fuel, ammunition, and rations. Somewhere, someone had a radical thought. What if these weapons could be mounted on trucks? What if a naval cannon could fire from the ground, mobile and unrestrained by traditional fortifications? Early prototypes were crude but functional. Mechanics and engineers worked in shifts, welding naval guns to truck beds, improvising mounting systems, and reinforcing suspensions to handle the recoil of 3-inch cannons. Quad 50-caliber machine guns, each normally a fixed anti-aircraft weapon, were adapted for ground use, able to mow down infantry with terrifying efficiency. They called these makeshift vehicles devil trucks, and the name carried an ominous weight that would follow them into the Ardennes. By mid-December, over 2,000 trucks had been converted, a testament to American industrial ingenuity. These were not precision-crafted tanks or sleek armored vehicles. They were mass-produced, rough, and improvisational. Yet in their simplicity lay a terrifying effectiveness. Commanders sent them forward not as replacements for artillery, but as instruments of surprise, weapons designed to unnerve and disrupt the enemy. Training was rapid. Soldiers learned to handle massive cannons, to coordinate mobile fire, and to strike from unexpected angles. They practiced firing from forests, frozen roads, and snow-covered fields. Every test highlighted their potential. A cannon mounted on a truck could annihilate an enemy column in seconds. A quad 50 caliber could turn a serene forest into a lethal death trap. And yet, all of this was improvised, a marriage of necessity and ingenuity. As the first devil trucks rolled out, rumors began to spread among American units, stories of vehicles that could strike like warships and vanish before retaliation captured imaginations and built morale. Engineers, drivers, and soldiers understood the danger they represented, not just to the enemy, but to themselves if they failed. Still, the cold December night of 1944 was perfect for experimentation, and no one could yet imagine the psychological shock these vehicles would inflict. The Germans, meanwhile, were unaware of the transformation taking place. Their reconnaissance spotted trucks and supply convoys, the usual targets of harassment, nothing extraordinary. But soon the first shots would fall. The roar of naval guns, the spray of machine gun fire would rewrite the rules of ground warfare. The devil trucks were more than vehicles. They were a symbol of what happens when ingenuity meets necessity, when ordinary machines become instruments of terror, and when war demands solutions that no textbook could predict. By the time the first encounters occurred in the frozen Ardennes, the legend was already taking shape. Veteran German soldiers would later write of ghostly trucks appearing in the night, firing with the power of battleships, striking fear into their hearts. But for now, in the quiet of workshops, snowy fields, and testing grounds, the devil trucks were being born, a frightening, brilliant idea that would soon become a nightmare on wheels for the German army. The night of December 17, 1944 was bitterly cold, and the Ardennes forest seemed endless. German troops pushed forward, confident in their superior numbers and seasoned experience.
Snow crunched under their boots, and the quiet was broken only by distant artillery. They believed they would encounter little resistance, expecting to sweep aside American rear units with ease. They were about to be proven wrong. American forces had been preparing for months, but nothing could have fully predicted what they were about to face. The Devil trucks, with their mounted naval cannons and quad .50 caliber machine guns, were rolling silently into position. Drivers guided them along snow-covered paths, through dense forests, and across frozen fields. Each truck was a fusion of ingenuity and improvisation, a machine that combined industrial power with raw American audacity. As the first German columns advanced, the trucks struck. The roar of a 3-inch naval cannon shattered the stillness, the force of its recoil sending plumes of snow into the air. German infantry, unprepared for such firepower, scattered in confusion. A quad .50 unleashed a hailstorm of bullets, the forest itself seeming to erupt in sparks and flying debris. Men froze in disbelief. Trucks were not supposed to deliver such destruction. Tanks were expected, artillery, maybe mortars, but not these ghostly mobile monsters that appeared, fired, and vanished as if they were spirits of war itself. Reports from survivors painted a picture of chaos. Convoys meant to secure supply routes were torn apart. Machine gun fire from multiple angles made the forests lethal. Soldiers described trucks that seemed to appear from nowhere, firing like naval destroyers and then melting back into the tree line. German morale faltered. Experienced SS units, hardened by years of combat, hesitated under the relentless assault. Every moment spent under the Devil truck's guns became a moment of terror, every engagement an unexpected fight for survival. American commanders coordinated these vehicles with precision. Trucks moved along hidden paths, striking where enemy forces least expected. Their mobility allowed them to exploit weak points, flank columns, and set up ambushes with terrifying speed. It was not just firepower that made them deadly, it was the unpredictability, the audacity of bringing naval artillery to ground combat. Engineers had designed them for maximum surprise, and in those first hours, the strategy worked flawlessly. The Germans soon gave the Devil trucks a name. Whispers spread through their ranks. Ghost trucks, vehicles that appeared suddenly, firing with overwhelming force, and vanished as if they were spirits of war itself. Soldiers recounted entire columns routed by the strange, unstoppable trucks, their fear growing with every encounter. The Ardennes, which had seemed like familiar ground, became a landscape of uncertainty where even veteran troops could not predict where the next deadly strike would come from. By the end of that first night, the lesson was clear. These improvised vehicles were more than a clever idea. They were a force multiplier, an unexpected weapon that challenged the German understanding of warfare. The Devil trucks had transformed ordinary supply trucks into mobile fortresses, combining the lethality of naval guns with the flexibility of land vehicles. The battlefield had shifted, and the Germans had no immediate answer. The frozen Ardennes had become a proving ground, not just for American innovation, but for the psychology of war. Fear, confusion, and shock spread faster than bullets, and as the snow fell and night lingered, the Devil trucks moved silently through the darkness, ready to strike again, rewriting the rules of ground combat in ways the Germans would never forget.
By now, the Devil trucks were no longer an experiment. They were a weapon fully tested in the crucible of war. Each truck carried an arsenal that seemed almost absurd in its power. 3-inch naval cannons, designed to obliterate aircraft at sea, now fired from the frozen forests of Belgium. Quad .50 caliber machine guns, once anti-aircraft mounts, turned ordinary trees and roads into deadly corridors. To German soldiers, these were not trucks, they were instruments of pure destruction. The first engagements demonstrated their true potential. A single 3-inch cannon could annihilate an infantry formation in seconds. Snow-covered fields that had once seemed safe became death zones. Columns of advancing troops were decimated before they could react, their panic spreading as men tried to flee through the storm of bullets and shell fragments. Even armored vehicles were forced to halt, stunned by the unexpected mobile firepower striking from unconventional angles. The Quad 50s were equally devastating. Mounted on trucks that could move rapidly between cover, these guns transformed forests into killing zones. One survivor recalled that a single truck hidden among snow-laden evergreens could unleash torrents of fire that pinned down entire companies of men. The combination of high mobility, fire rate, and surprise made the trucks nearly impossible to counter in the early stages of the engagement. American crews adapted quickly. Drivers learned to maneuver in snow, through narrow forest paths, and even along frozen rivers to evade counterattack. Gunners trained relentlessly, practicing rapid targeting, coordinated fire, and ambush techniques. The trucks moved like predators, striking where the enemy least expected, their guns roaring with a power no one thought a simple truck could deliver. The psychological impact was profound. German soldiers began to fear these vehicles more than traditional tanks or artillery. Stories of ghost trucks spread through units, whispered in bivouacs and command posts. Witnesses described vehicles appearing as if from nowhere, firing like battleships and vanishing just as suddenly. Morale dropped, hesitation grew, and even experienced officers admitted their surprise and frustration. Despite their improvised nature, the Devil trucks were remarkably effective. Mass-produced GMC trucks carried massive firepower, proving that quantity, flexibility, and ingenuity could sometimes outweigh the sophistication of enemy engineering. Every destroyed column, every ambushed patrol added to the legend. By combining naval firepower with mobility, these vehicles became a form of psychological and physical warfare, a weapon as much about fear as destruction. By the end of the initial engagements, it was clear that the Devil trucks had rewritten the rules of combat in the Ardennes. Ordinary supply trucks, transformed by necessity and American ingenuity, had become more than machines. They were symbols of surprise, adaptation, and raw firepower. And as the snow continued to fall, the forests echoed with the memory of guns firing from nowhere, the roar of naval cannons on wheels, and the terror of troops who never saw their attackers coming. The battlefield had changed, forever proving that in war, sometimes the most unconventional ideas, driven by urgency, resourcefulness, and bold thinking, can produce results that shock even the most experienced soldiers. The Devil trucks were not born in the Ardennes. They were born in factories, workshops, and the minds of engineers who refused to accept limitations. Behind every cannon mounted on a truck was a story of industrial ingenuity, of surplus materials repurposed, of logistics pushed to the edge of possibility. The United States had long mastered mass production, but in 1944, this capacity became a weapon of unprecedented flexibility. Every truck began as an ordinary GMC supply vehicle, unarmored and utilitarian, designed to carry supplies, fuel, and munitions. Alone, a single truck was insignificant on the battlefield. But by mounting naval cannons, reinforcing suspensions, and adding quad .50 caliber guns, engineers transformed these humble vehicles into mobile fortresses capable of altering the course of combat. The challenge was immense. Each cannon had to withstand the force of firing. Each gun had to be stabilized. Each crew had to operate under conditions that tested both endurance and skill. Factories ran around the clock. Workers welded, bolted, and modified hundreds of trucks, coordinating with naval depots to supply surplus guns. Standardization helped speed production, but improvisation was equally critical. Mechanics had to adapt different gun mounts to different trucks, overcome shortages, and ensure that each vehicle could move in snow, forest paths, and uneven terrain. The result was not elegance, it was effectiveness. And in war, effectiveness is measured in survival and destruction.
Behind the front line, commanders orchestrated the deployment of over 2,000 mobile gun platforms. Coordination, communication, and logistics were crucial. Trucks needed fuel, ammunition, and maintenance, all while moving unpredictably to strike the enemy where they least expected. The scale of this effort was staggering, yet the United States' industrial base allowed it to happen. Mass production provided quantity, and ingenuity ensured quality where it mattered. Soldiers operating the Devil trucks understood the stakes. Each mission combined danger with opportunity. Drivers navigated through snow and ice, gunners learned to fire from concealed positions, and commanders timed movements to maximize surprise. Reports from the front highlighted both success and the occasional malfunction. Improvised designs carried risks, but the overall impact was undeniable. The Devil trucks could turn the tide of an engagement, their mobility and firepower amplifying the strength of ordinary units and creating the illusion of overwhelming force. This chapter of the Devil truck's story is a testament to the American approach to warfare in 1944. It was not just about the weapons themselves, it was about the system that produced, deployed, and supported them. Factories, supply chains, and human ingenuity combined to create a force that the Germans could not anticipate. The lesson was clear. Wars are often won not by the sophistication of individual machines, but by the ability to field effective solutions in vast numbers, fast, and in ways that keep the enemy off balance. By the end of the Ardennes campaign, the Devil trucks had demonstrated the full potential of American industrial and logistical prowess. What began as an improvised solution had become a powerful, flexible, and terrifying tool. Ordinary trucks, naval guns, and determined crews proved that innovation in war is not measured in elegance alone. It is measured in adaptability, speed, and the ability to strike decisively when the moment demands it.
The Battle of the Bulge had ended, but the legend of the Devil trucks endured. These improvised machines, born from necessity and American ingenuity, had done more than repel German forces. They had rewritten the rules of ground warfare. What began as a desperate solution had become a lasting symbol of adaptability, speed, and overwhelming firepower. Historians later reflected on how ordinary GMC trucks fitted with naval cannons and quad 50 caliber machine guns had forced the Germans to confront a reality they had never anticipated. Experienced SS units, known for precision and discipline, were unnerved by vehicles that struck unpredictably, moved with shocking speed, and delivered firepower normally reserved for battleships. The psychological impact was as significant as the physical destruction. Fear, confusion, and hesitation spread through enemy ranks, amplifying the effectiveness of every attack. The Devil trucks also left a legacy for military thinking. They demonstrated that improvisation, supported by industrial capacity, can rival the most sophisticated engineering when necessity demands it. Modern doctrines of mobile firepower, rapid deployment, and combined arms operations owe a debt to the lessons learned in those snow-covered Ardennes forests. The idea that flexibility and ingenuity can compensate for technological limitations became a guiding principle in future conflicts. Even decades later, veterans recounted the terror inspired by these vehicles. German soldiers spoke of ghost trucks that seemed to appear from nowhere, firing with unstoppable force before vanishing into the tree line. American crews remembered the thrill and fear of operating weapons so powerful, yet so improvised. These stories reinforced the notion that war is as much about imagination, strategy, and adaptability as it is about raw firepower. Beyond battlefield tactics, the Devil trucks showcased the strength of American industry and the mindset of its people. Factories, engineers, and soldiers worked together to transform surplus materials into decisive weapons. Mass production combined with creative problem-solving created a force that could overwhelm, outmaneuver, and outthink the enemy. In the end, it was not elegance that won the day. It was effectiveness, speed, and the relentless application of resources to a critical problem. Their impact also extended to morale on both sides. For American troops, seeing the trucks roll into battle brought confidence, a tangible reminder that ingenuity and resourcefulness could level the playing field against a better-equipped enemy. For German soldiers, the shock of facing weapons they could not anticipate created an enduring sense of vulnerability. Commanders quickly realized that the battlefield was no longer predictable, and conventional tactics alone were insufficient to counter these mobile threats. Today, the Devil trucks are remembered not just as improvised vehicles, but as symbols of innovation under pressure. They remind us that ingenuity can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, that even a humble truck can become a decisive weapon, and that in war, adaptability and creativity can be as lethal as any tank or artillery piece. From the frozen Ardennes to modern military planning, the spirit of the Devil trucks lives on, a testament to the power of thinking differently, striking unexpectedly, and using every tool at your disposal to achieve victory.